I am Tia Williams. We're live here with Britt Poole. He's the town administrator at the town of Lexington. We have a lot of exciting things happening right now in Lexington in general. One of the big reasons we wanted to sit down with you guys today is talk about some of the recent progress with the vision plan. We've got a very notable construction happening on Main Street right now with the Project Ice House Amphitheater. What are you guys officially calling that now?
It's probably going to be the Ice House Amphitheater, and then we will entertain naming rights at some point in time in the future, but we wanted to kind of have the site built out before we did that.
Okay. So maybe a sponsorship or some
Yeah,
public-private
probably still
collaboration
be
with
like,
that?
you know, amphitheater at the Ice House or Ice House Amphitheater, sponsored by so-and-so, you know, that kind of thing.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let Britt just spend a little bit of time talking to us about how this happened, and I guess for people that are not aware, that Midlands Anchor used to actually be Lexington Anchor. We were very involved in the town of Lexington. Back in 2012, I moved back in town and actually found out about the vision plan. That was a big reason that I started Lexington Anchor as just a blogspot blog. But I guess just kind of give us a quick overview of what is the plan, why did you guys decide to go ahead and, I think you contracted out Boudreaux Group to help you with the designing, and so just kind of what is in a couple words, the main purpose of the plan and where you guys want to head with that?
Well, so we wanted to be able to develop a strategic plan, and it's called the vision plan, but it really is a strategic plan. And we wanted to sort of take the pulse of the community and see what the expectations were of the citizens and the businesses and different groups within the community, and we entered into this 18-month long process. As you mentioned, the Boudreaux Group was who was selected to help us with that, to, you know, establish some goals and some waypoints to be able to get wherever the citizenry wanted us to get.
Right,
and
so a full
that's
18 months.
It took us 18
planning.
months, yeah.
That's exciting.
There was a lot of, I couldn't tell you exactly how many meetings there were, but there were a lot of public input sessions.
Yeah.
Some of them were public, you know, just anybody was invited, and a lot of them were very selective from the standpoint of, hey, we want to hear from the religious community, so let's get all the pastors together.
Right.
Hey, we want to hear from the business community, so bring the chamber in, you know, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So.
And you guys had a citizens advisory board, and I think there were some public officials were on that as well.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a number of notable people in the community. We had some young professionals on there. We had, I believe there was some religious representation on there. We had some representation from county government. So we tried to make everything as inclusive as we could, so that we weren't just hearing from one voice, but we were hearing from everybody and trying to, you know, cut through the cacophony and figure out exactly what it was that was the core goal behind everybody's wishes.
That's very cool. So I guess some people might realize that I have a master's degree in urban planning from Virginia Tech and economic development. So I mean, this stuff's just fun for me. I enjoy it. What is your background? How did you always see yourself being a town administrator? Or what
No, not at all. I'm one of those real crooked road guys. So I originally, my profession was IT, and I started with the town. I came over as the IT director. And then I also have some background in construction and things like that, and so I eventually took over the planning and building department and was the building official for the town, and that then became assistant administrator, was a project manager along the way, dealt with a lot of projects. I was the project manager for Gibson Pond Park
I didn't know that.
and the Palmetto Collegiate. Those were all projects that I was over.
Oh, cool.
So it just kind of came up through the roads. I attended the Citadel, and I also have a degree from limestone.
Okay. And I do think that this type of field really is kind of a jack of all trades kind of position.
It really is.
You have to know a little bit about just psychology, how people interpret their surroundings, business.
Sure.
You have to be able to see details and then also see big picture where you're heading. So I think that's really neat that you have a random background like that, because
Yeah.
I think otherwise, I don't think many people actually go get degrees in urban planning, but at the time I thought it sounded fun, so that's why I did it.
Well, I would say that IT is one of those unusual beasts that is involved in everything that organization does, right, at some level. So it was really, I felt, a good place to get started because I immediately was involved in the operations of every department in the town.
Right.
There is nobody, I mean, it doesn't matter if it's, has to do with garbage pickup or, police. They're all intricately involved in technology somehow.
Yeah.
So it was neat
That's
to
cool.
see.
So it's just a little behind the scenes
Yeah.
snippet into and what happens here on a daily basis.
Exactly, yeah.
It's very neat.
Yeah.
So the vision plan.
Okay.
I was, I'm one of the people that actually, I think, just read the whole thing from beginning to end, and I found it.
It's not very long.
It's not. It's really not, and it's actually on the Town of Lexington website
It
for
is.
anybody that wants to look at it. So there's some guiding principles. How did you guys narrow down what the guiding principles were?
Really, that was solely through that public input process. I mean, we went to great pains to hear what was being said, and it would have been a shame if we had taken that information and then just said, well, but these are what we want to do over here.
Right.
So it really, I mean, it came straight out of those meetings, and it was just, there were certain things that you heard time in and time again. I mean, it didn't matter what the group was, their position was very similar to what you heard in the last one and what you were going to hear in the next one, and that's where they came from. I mean, it was really, they grew organically right out of that.
Right.
There's some things that I think the population would agree today are still primary concerns, and it just still holds true. Like, what can we do to help with traffic? What are the things we can do to help move cars through better than they're being done now, and how do we grow, because I mean, growth is something that is happening, is going to happen. You don't get to choose not to grow.
Right.
So how are we going to grow in a way that doesn't ruin the thing that people feel is the most valuable about the community, which again we heard time and time again, was that they felt like it's a small town.
Right.
It's not, but it feels like it.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's definitely the impression I got from spending time here and being involved in Lexington Young Professionals and being from West Columbia, but it's all kind of one big area when you're from this area.
Yeah.
Can you name off like a quick summary of the guiding principles?
Probably not. but I mean, I hit on some of the big ones. It's what do we need to do to how do we grow downtown? I mean, that was something I kind of tie into the small town feel because that really is. How do you have a small town if you don't have a downtown? Those things go together. But those were two of the ones, and another big one was traffic and infrastructure. And I think one of the ones was how are we more friendly to work with businesses and things like that. Right. So those were the core of it. But yeah, I couldn't read them off to you off the top of my head. Sorry.
And those are good. That's a good overview. I think most people that follow anything going on in Lexington would agree. And I think it's important to note that if a town doesn't or a city doesn't go through the trouble of actually creating a comprehensive plan, most of the time those guiding principles come from the politician or just whoever just happens to be agreeing.
Actually, I don't even know if there are guiding principles. I think if you don't set a goal and a principle by which to get to that point, you're just being reactive to the situation that's going on. And so it's just that particular instance, this is what we should do, instead of looking at what's the big picture and how does this get us further down the road.
Right, exactly. So we are 3 years into the actual development of the vision plan. We've gotten at least 2 or 3 phases I've seen. It was we started with just basic beautification, the front porches going into the interstate. We had, I think, the traffic is what you had already alluded to, the adaptive signalization. A lot of people are kind of hearing about that in the news and seeing that that's kind of underway. It started.
Yeah, we have 5 signals out of 32 that are up and running right now.
Right. And then you had some greenways that you're working on.
So that's 14 Mile Creek,
right.
Which is currently back open but has been significantly damaged in the flooding, which has affected some of the projects on the plan. But it is currently back open.
Right. Okay. So it sounds like a good mix of you're kind of looking at, obviously we have a economic need to get Main Street up and running and fully utilized, get some shops taking over some of the vacancies in that area. That's what the Project Ice House, and it sounds like that's one of your biggest concerns right now, especially in the second half of this project.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think I could say one thing is more important than the other. That's the biggest thing that's visible that's going on right now. We've got a lot of the traffic things that are in scale of dollars larger, but that's the biggest thing that's visible, and we've had a lot of successes downtown.
Right.
I mean, when we first started this, there were a lot more empty buildings downtown, and there was one restaurant, and now there's a number of restaurants, and they all seem to be doing really well.
Would you say that's a
mom and pop places, right? I mean, they're not chains. They're homegrown.
Would you say that's one of the bigger successes of the vision plan so far, is that you've had support from the community, especially the business owners, and seeing the importance long term?
Yeah, I think, and I kind of go back to that process that we went through to get there, that I think that we have the buy-in of the community as a whole. I mean, everybody's got detractors for this thing or that thing, but as a whole, the community gets it, and they've been on board with it, and so yeah, that's if you don't have the community behind you, you can't do anything.
Right.
I mean, you can't accomplish any goal because you've got to have their support to be able to do it.
Right. Can you take a second to explain kind of how this is financed for people who aren't as
I can. And let me start by saying it's a big mishmash. And one of the things that I wanted to do, I'm sliding out of the camera. One of the things that I wanted to do when we started the plan, when council said, "Hey, this is what we want to do," and I insisted that we include an economist on the development team, because Boudreaux Group led the planning effort, but they really were over a number of other entities that they just kind of were the spearhead for. So we had an engineer, traffic engineering company that worked and to do some regular engineering and also traffic engineering, and we had some landscape architects and people like that. So they were they were the head of an expert team.
Right.
And I insisted that we have an economist as part of that team, because I didn't want to have to fail council's goal of, because the goal is never to create a plan.
Right.
The goal is to get somewhere.
Right.
And if we had just created the plan and stopped there, we wouldn't have met the goal.
Right.
So I wanted to be able to try to take into account how we were going to get there.
Right.
And so that really is probably why we're sitting here talking today, because we've been able to do some of those things. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I know I was saying that's huge.
Yeah,
It's very insightful.
It's everything. Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier, there's so many jurisdictions around the entire country that have stacks of plans that have been developed that never get done.
Right.
And it's so sad, because it's, maybe they were not feasible to start with, or maybe there was nobody, didn't have that community buy-in to make it happen. I don't know for each particular instance, but it's sad to put that much effort into something and get nothing out of it.
Right. And that's cool. And I don't know if a lot of people understand that, especially in these projects, a lot of times it's more a matter of being smart about money that's already coming in.
Yeah.
You've got tourism, you've got other things like hospitality, you've got income sources that are going to grow as you guys are more successful, and you're using that money in a smart combination of grants and other things that you're finding to make it happen.
Yeah, it really is this big conglomeration of things. So the welcome sign, and the interchange improvement, that was a $750,000 project and was significant landscaping on something. So that money all came from a grant, all but $100,000 of it, which was the match for the grant, which could only be used for beautification of an interchange. It was federal money. And so, sometimes we hear, that money could have been put towards something else. Well, no, it couldn't have been. We could have done that, or we could have not done it.
Right.
I mean, those are the options we had.
Right.
And so we saw that as an opportunity to create one of the gateways. Went for that. That program has now gone away, so it's not, those monies aren't available on a yearly basis anymore. So that's just one example of where money has come from for that. You know, we've also, the amphitheater and a lot of the downtown improvement stuff is being done through a TIF district, which, and all that is just, it's called tax increment financing, and it just means that when the value of property in a certain district goes up, that additional taxes that's gained on that goes into a certain pot. And you can spend that money on certain things, and the amphitheater is an example of that. So nobody's taxes got raised. We just took a portion of the money that was otherwise going to be collected and devoted it to a specific project, and that allows you to go get a bond and go ahead and build the project. It's just it's a designated revenue source is what it is, so you can go get a bond. And there's, you know, I could probably sit here and name 10 different other ways that we've done financing for particular projects. Each project has to be looked at on its own.
That's very smart. And for anybody that's interested in learning more about the current projects, we actually have Mayor McDougall's State of the Town address on Midlands Anchor. It's a really great article, a kind of overview. I mean, he goes into great detail about the development prospects you have for construction next year compared to last year. It looks like you're up at least
we beat
8,000.
last year's numbers the first 3 months of this year.
Right. You've got at least 100 more residential houses being built this year. You've got, I mean, a lot of people know that Lexington's growing, but that's important, is as long as you have a streamlined source of income where you know you're going to be able to take a little bit of that off the top each year and put it back into the community.
Sure.
I think that's impressive. And the town has won awards for the finance department, I believe, too.
Yeah, for like 20 some odd years, they've won not only the budget award, but there's another award for a document that a lot of people don't do, which is the CAFR, and it's a comprehensive financial report. And what that means is, so the budget is, hey, this is what we plan to spend the money on, and so everybody's familiar with that document. But the CAFR comes after the budget year is done, where you say, here's how we actually spent the money, and you can compare it against the budget and say, okay, everything is what they said it was going to be. And so we kind of, the finance department gets them coming and going. They get the budget awards and the CAFR awards from the Government Financing Association every single year.
That's very cool. And I mean, is it true that the taxes haven't been raised in 20 years?
I think it's 28 or 29 now.
Wow.
Yeah, and we actually lowered millage by 2.4% this year. So
incredible.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean, that just goes to show, like, economic development is a very important topic to our readers and to me personally, and it goes to show that there is a certain amount of you put in, you get enough out that everybody benefits. And I do enjoy that side of government. So, what have you learned so far? I mean, you're 3 years into this. I'm sure it was not all easy. Did you have a couple challenges and you kind of learned how to get through it?
So, I mean, just like with any project, things come up. I mean, we're just talking about a much larger scale with all these different moving parts. But I think the biggest challenge that we've had has been the devastation that was wrought by the flood.
Right.
So that, you know, the old mill was one of our main projects, and we hope still will be.
Right.
But, you know, there's no way that we're going to be, that's privately owned dam. We can't fund its construction. We hope the feds are able, through FEMA, to be able to extend some monies to the owner to be able to fix that. But if that doesn't happen, then you know, one of the things that you have to be is flexible.
Right.
So you can't be rigid. This is what we said we were going to do. It's the only thing we can do.
Right.
We maybe are going to have to take a step back and say, okay, well, there isn't a pond to have a walking trail around anymore.
Right.
So what can we feasibly do that's similar, that you know meets the same goal with that space and that property. And so we'll have to make that decision at some point in time. And when I say we, I mean town council. So they'll have to make that decision at some point on what they're going to do. But right now we're still holding out hope that FEMA's going to step up and provide a majority of the funding so we can see the dam built back.
Right. So. And I think that says a lot about the strength of the plan. I think having that input in the beginning, getting the residents on board and the business owners and all the people that are invested, it just shows that, you know, the public's willing to be patient if they feel like there's some transparency and there's a general understanding of what to expect. I think that's where a lot of the plans get caught up, is they lose that communication piece at some point, or they lose some of the guiding principles. to kind of
Well,
go off on tangents.
Something that I'm real proud of, and I think you will acknowledge, is when you open up the plan, I think it's on the first or second page, there's a list of all the public outreach that went on. There must be 70 different things on that list, from, whether it was advertising we did on Channel 2, or newspaper articles that were written, or television news shows that were done, or, things like that. And it's just one after another over that entire 18-month span. There was just a huge reach out to try to get as much input as we
Right.
could.
And I think what's cool too is for anybody that wants to go on the Midlands Anchor page, you can go into the header. There is under the news and updates, there's a tab that says community development and then Vision Lexington.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had updates from you guys for the last 3 years. So we've got, I think I counted today, like 15 or 16 articles that the town was really great about getting to me, and it was just like, pretty good overview of what to expect with the phase and what to see next, and some photos. And so, I mean, that shows too that just even throughout the process, you guys were cognizant of how do we keep the momentum going. And how do
we do the mayor does a vision plan update at the start of every council meeting.
That's cool.
And Mayor Pro Tem follows up with a traffic update. So those are things we want. If we only got you for a few minutes, and you're going to turn when we get to the business, at least listen to that part.
Right.
So that's what's going on.
So let's talk about Main Street.
Okay.
I love Main Street. I love any Main Street. Main Streets
awesome.
are great places to go and be. So a lot of people don't realize that a big part of the plan was you were looking at other cities and regions that were similar, so that you'd have something to kind of go by or something to shoot for.
Yeah.
And you saw that Greenville actually had the same streetscape from up about the flight deck down to the old mill.
They have about the same width of right-of-way.
Which is super interesting. Most people, I think, that's testament to what a plan is. A lot of people don't realize Greenville was not what it is right now.
No, it wasn't.
Back in the 80s, and it was much, much worse off than most of the cities in South Carolina. So, I guess if you could just draw us a visual picture, what do you see Main Street looking like once all this is kind of like we're 10 years out? Like, what do you picture?
Well, to be frank, I hope it doesn't look too terribly different than the way it looks right now.
Right.
We just want to fill some of those businesses and some of those empty bays and some of the unbuilt lots, to try to build those, but in a way in which ties back to the historic nature of downtown. Right. So the Shirey's building, I think, is a good example of that. Right there in front of Carpet One at the corner of Church and Main, and the owner of that building, who is one of our partners in the Ice House project, has put like $1 million in the refurbishing of that building.
Right.
And that's a win. That's what a win looks like.
That's
is
huge.
when you have private money say, I see what you're trying to do there, and I want to get on board and help, and they put that kind of money behind one building, then you start. That's when you see. I mean, my goal, personal goal, not in the vision plan anywhere, is to have all the lawyers that have law offices on Main Street to say, I can make more money by leasing my business to a restaurant, to a boutique retail, than I can by having it here. So I'm going to move a block off of Main Street, and I'm going to lease this to let some sort of activity generating business go in there. And I think when we start seeing that happen, we'll know we've had successes. We've been successful so far, but we will have won at that point.
Yeah. And that's what I guess I was getting at too, is I picture very similar where it is now, but also the walkability aspect of it. I mean, it's already walkable, but I mean, just during Wine Walk, you see the energy and how fun it is to be able to have a whole street that, you can just hang out with your friends, see people and I think that's where it's right. We've got a lot of neighborhoods, pretty close walking distance to downtown and Main Street, and just seeing more people out and about during the day or at night. I mean, I'm still in that young professional category, and we were part of Rocktoberfest and all those other events that we try to bring people down there, and I think as all this progresses, especially the amphitheater, you'll already start to see that.
Yeah. So the goal with the amphitheater is we want to have 3 to 4 big events a year, and then have a number of events, maybe weekly or even more than weekly events that are on a smaller scale that are just generating activity, you know, that are giving people places to come and do. And I think that there'll be a huge, there'll be a big separation between what those events look like. So some of them might be school events where Lexington One brings a school out to do a concert or something, which they've shown some interest in. We've had discussions with Village Square about maybe having some plays in there. There may be, you know, garage band content. I mean, everything that you can think of, we want to be open to all of those things, so that it fits. You know, if what's there today isn't, you know, smooth jazz isn't your thing, then come back, you know, next week and it'll be something completely different that is your thing. And so that's what the goal with that is. And to have, you know, I kind of look at it as, if we have those big events and continue to have those big events, we're opening the eyes to people that aren't aware that it's there, that it is there, and the parking's going to be great to get in and out of, and that, you know, everything, it's a great venue. And so once they know that it's there, then they'll come back for the small events.
I'm very excited to see that the town's already allocated money for an event planner and has money up front for sponsorships. Oh, okay. So, I mean, that just shows the level of commitment. But that shows a level of commitment that you have a person dedicated. You're expecting a lot of activity in there. It's already going to be pretty much this fall, I think I saw, is what you're anticipating.
The goal is to have a smaller kickoff event, probably late September, and then a larger event in October, and then we'll follow up with some snowball activities in December. It'll probably go dark till after February just because of the weather, and then we'll be ready to really kick off after.
And you'll get some time to test it out, see what the traffic's like, and kind of, I mean, anything like this, you're going to have to figure it out.
Well, we're still going to be in a transition during that time because we've got the one-way pair project going on downtown, so that's going to be under construction when we open. And we still have the overflow parking lot to build, which is 250 additional parking places.
Imagine your job. Like, it's something like, somebody told me this, could be completely off, but like 89 or 95,000 cars drive through Main Street every day.
And so it's about, now we have a service population, or we have about 130,000 people that pass through the town every day. Main Street has about a traffic count of about 18,000, and SC6 has about 12 to 14,000. And 378's, you know, 30, depending on where you are, 35 to 40 vehicles a day.
Yeah, I heard somebody threw out, I think it was guys over at Radius, but either way, that's a lot of cars. Anybody that drives through Lexington, and that's a good thing. That's a good problem to have.
I would rather be trying to figure out what we do with all this traffic than trying to answer business owners' questions about why nobody's here. You know, it's not a bad problem. It's just a problem we do need to see if we can sort out.
And I have to know, there's always been talk of a nice boutique grocery store, or is there any other? Maybe you don't have to say it. We're I mean, it's not a secret that that's a goal for downtown. But when, if, how, you know, there's still a lot of negotiations going on. You'll appreciate this. We found, so with having a little bit of an economic development background, we found that economic development, when you're doing a commercial center like Ice House is completely the opposite way that you would normally go about it. And what I mean by that is we immediately went out to try to find the anchor that we wanted, you know, the big win to build the small wins around. And what we found was, when we talked to those people, everybody was like, wow, that is a great idea. We might really want to be a part of that. Do all your other stuff first and then come back and see us. Because I'm not going to spend any money on a promise that you guys are going to do this stuff and that other people are going to buy it. So we kind of flipped it around and started doing the opposite, and we started, you know, recruiting and you know, finding tenants and buyers for the other parcels, which we've been successful with. And so that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle which will come. We're negotiating a contract for a building pad behind Shires right now. So we expect to be able to announce that in the not too distant future. Explain, you know, what are the next steps, especially for you guys? Like, we've got so many people that want to be involved. A lot of people read the Anchor, and they're constantly like reaching out saying, you know, we want more community engagement. We want ways to get plugged in, and we want to hear the good things that are happening, and how do we do more of that. So Can you just give them a quick update on what you guys are looking for?
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, we just hired the amphitheater promotion person, and part of that person's job is going to be to work with the businesses downtown and just sort of make sure we're not stepping on their toes when we're doing events and that we're doing things that jive with them. And that's going to result in, ultimately these events. And there's going to be plenty of space for volunteers and people that want to get active and be involved in those events. Some, maybe some great stuff that you can, get in the mix on. We don't have any details on how that's going to look yet because we're, literally Walker, the fellow's name is Walker, that's the promoter. He started last Wednesday, so
Okay.
he's new, and we still got the amphitheater under construction. So we're figuring out how all that's going to look. But I'd just say it's going to be there.
Right.
Now, people that want to get involved on a more permanent, not an event level, we have lots of openings on our boards and commissions.
Oh, that's right.
And would love for people to submit applications to those. Even if you don't think you're qualified for anything, there are certain boards that have just a citizen role where it's just maybe there's, I'll give you the architecture and appearance board as an example. So they make a lot of decisions on what things are ultimately buildings are going to look like in town, and they're very involved in the design process of new construction in town for commercial buildings. And there's architects on that board that provide the professional outlook, but there's citizens that also speak for what the citizens think are important. And you don't need to be an architect, you don't need to be a builder, you just need to have an opinion and come get involved. And so there's things from that to the Citizens Advisory Committee, Traffic Committee, if you want to be plugged in on what's going on traffic stuff. And there's professional positions and traffic engineers that are on that committee, but there's a very important role to be played by the citizenry, because if you don't get involved, we don't know what you want.
Right.
You have to get involved, and there's plenty of opportunities on those boards for people that want a more permanent, ongoing role to get plugged in and see what's going on in town.
That's cool. So what's the best way for them to find that? I guess go to the town website.
Go to the website, and I'd say
Lexington.com.
and that's a perfect place for any of the things we've talked about. All the information's there.
I think the next phases of the vision plan are on there as well. For anybody that wants to kind of quickly get caught up and see what's next.
Yeah, they are. So we just about 18 months ago, maybe it was 2 years, somewhere in there, we had an additional retreat and kind of reworked the vision plan. We plan on doing that again, probably sometime this winter. Just if you just leave it static, you're not going to get the results that you ultimately want. So we go back in and take a look at where we are and what our measurables are, and how we can make modifications to. Some new stuff gets added, some stuff just gets taken out because now it's not doesn't line up with those principles anymore for whatever reason.
Cool.
Go to the website, fill out a talent bank if you want to be on boards and commission, and so that basically is. I don't want to use the word resume. It just tells us some information about you so we can contact you and find out what you might be interested in, a little bit about your history. And then other than that, you want to be looking on the website for those volunteer opportunities.
Right.
We always have our VIPs, which are people who have gone through our police academy. So we have an academy that happens once a year. I think they just had a graduating class, so it'll be a little while before we have another one. And those people get really in-depth involved in what the police department does. And then after you go through that program, it gives you an opportunity to be a volunteer for police events, cool. Which also volunteer for these type of events. And it's really neat, and they really form a tight group afterwards. And we've got people that were in the very first class 7-8 years ago that are still, I see them at almost everything we do.
Yeah. And I mean, you're a stat guy, so you've probably seen articles or studies out there that show that the towns that have the most volunteer support, definitely you see the ripple effect of more commerce downtown, just stronger support for the police, for the hospitals, for everybody. Yeah,
absolutely, and we encourage that and love it. I mean, we love to have the people out. They really, I mean, it helps us tremendously at some of these events. you know, that's an officer that, you know, maybe doesn't have to be, we're paying overtime for or whatever.
Right.
If we've got somebody there and
That's
that person's meeting people and getting involved, they're helping the
Yeah.
town keep costs down and you know, having a good time while doing it, so.
And the crime rate's definitely still dropping here. So
Yeah.
I mean, Lexington's doing a lot of the right things. I think it'd be smart for other regions to look at you guys, and I'm sure that'll help strengthen y'all as well as
Yeah.
you reach out. So, well, I just do want to take a second to thank you, Britt.
Absolutely.
This has been really fun.
Yeah, I've had a good
We
time.
could talk about this for days. We definitely could do a second part, and you know,
Sure.
as things move along. And at the Anchor, we will also be doing a write-up article on this. We'll include all the links. We'll kind of give a quick summary and synopsis on what's happened with the vision plan, and then of course, as you guys update the plan or want to get communications out to the public, we'll have that on midlandsanchor.com. So, thanks. Hope you have
Absolutely.
a good rest of the afternoon.
Yeah.